I hate to say it, but she's kinda right. Some of these reviews are crazy, guys. Dang, okay, so, but this reviewer kinda ate. Ooh, you guys are absolutely just tearing these books apart. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If you have been here before, welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Cameron and I make videos about books and reading and libraries and all sorts of things like that. I saw several of my favorite book creators made videos like this and I thought it would be super fun to do. I specifically saw Leonie and Jack Edwards post about this, but today we are reading 1-star reviews of some of my personal favorite books. And these are all kind of a big array of books. Some of them are longtime favorites, a lot of them are new favorites, the ones that I read earlier this year that I just really liked. A bunch of them are classics. So yeah, we are gonna go through and just kind of look at some 1-star reviews of all of these. So let's get started with one of my favorite classics, which is Frankenstein. And we are looking at all of these reviews on Goodreads. I am not personally on Goodreads, but you know, we're looking. So, starting with Frankenstein. Also, before we start this video, you guys better not be giving any hate to any of these reviewers. Everyone is allowed to have their opinions, okay? Do you understand? Sarah says, an annoying scientist and an ugly tall man fight over who is more depressed. I hate to say it, but she's kinda right. Two back to back. Andrew says, this has to be the most tedious thing I've ever read in my life. I would disagree with that, but only because I've attempted to read Les Mis. I did not finish it. I hopefully will at some point, but you know. Sophie says, Mary Shelley, I'm so sorry, but even the gayness could not save this book. Amy said, this book made me want to go commit die. However, I do stand Miss Mary. She was a bad bitch. I try to build this channel on a position of like, if you don't like books, that is okay. Not every book is for everyone. I will read some books that you guys might recommend to me that I don't love, but that doesn't invalidate what you guys are reading. This is a hilarious review. That's such a funny thing to say. Okay, and here's two more that are kind of related to each other. Aaliyah said, Frankenstein's immune system folding at slight inconveniences. Yeah. Evie Lane says, you're telling me that a man who was ill for months after any minor inconvenience happened to just casually went to the Arctic and survived the majority of it? If you've never read the book before, Frankenstein, the doctor, who's not even a doctor, by the way, he's a college student. He's a first-year college student. But Frankenstein spends probably 3/4 of the book being sick because his body literally can't handle the consequences of the actions he's taken. So anyway, that was Frankenstein. We'll do another Gothic literature right on top of it because I think people might have some opinions about Mr. Dracula. Oh, this is like an author review. S.A. Parham said, I was rather disappointed by this classic. It started out with promise, especially the Jonathan Harker bits. Then all the male characters descended into blubbering worshippers of the two female characters, and by the end of the novel I was wishing Dracula could snack on all of them and be done with it. I kept having to put it aside and read chapters in between other books, but I managed to finish it at last. Dang, okay, so parts of this I would say are true, for sure. I personally disagree with it. I think it's fun. It feels like just a big D&D group going on an adventure together, which I've said on this channel before. All the male characters descended into blubbering worshippers of the two female characters. The parts of it that are true is 3 of the main men are suitors to one woman, and Jonathan, who was mentioned in this review, is the husband of another one. And then the only other character, Van Helsing, works very closely with Mina, Jonathan's wife. So I can see the admiration, But I could see how it was portrayed that way, for sure. I'm not gonna read this whole review, but the review starts with, "Friend John, this could have been a short story." So this one is not necessarily funny, but it does have a pretty good point. "This is now my second time DNFing this. I can't do it. I'm bored out of my mind. This book put me in such a horrible book slump, I finally just had to stop forcing it." I bring this up because you should not force books you don't like. If you don't like a book, you are allowed to put it down. I'm telling you this because I'm someone who has a difficulty putting down books I don't enjoy. So, hear me when I say, you can DNF books, it's okay. Now we have kind of moved on to more modern classics, like they're still definitely considered classics, but they were written in the 1900s. So one of my favorite classics that I got to study in high school was Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. And this review by Kate ZSZ says, "The way you can tell this was written by a man is he writes a teenage girl who walks alone at night and voluntarily begins a conversation with a male stranger." I hate to say it, but this reviewer kinda ate. What an insane review. That's so funny. Oh no. Frida said, "How ironic yet fitting if we were to burn all of the copies of this book." That's so sad. Ooh, you guys are absolutely just tearing these books apart. So, To Kill a Mockingbird, another classic that I just love. I saw the traveling, like the touring production of it, and that was really, really fantastic. If you got the chance to go to it, please let me know down in the comments below. This one says, "Everybody wants to be Atticus Finch. I wanted to be Boo Radley." That's such a great, I'm so sorry, that's such a great review. Because honestly, I too wanted to be Boo Radley, and I'm not going to explain anymore if you haven't read the book. If you have read the book, I know that 1-star review doesn't help you, but I really, really enjoy it. Oh my gosh. Okay, this review, got 2 reviews kind of back to back. This review by Nicola says, "I couldn't get on with it. Too slow and doesn't work as a whodunit because we now have DNA evidence. Cannot think why so many people love it." This one makes my head hurt a little bit. It's not, you need to know anything about To Kill a Mockingbird, it's not a whodunit. It's not a murder mystery. Also, I believe the book takes place in like the 1910s. So DNA evidence doesn't even matter. And then Marvin said, "Stupid title, there's no dead mockingbirds. Ghastly book 2. Great. Okay, so now we're gonna get more into some modern books. If you don't read classics, you might recognize a few more of these titles. But this first one is Outlawed, which was one of my favorite reads of last year. I do have to go back and read it to see if it kind of like solidifies itself as one of my favorites of all time, but I am curious to see how we're doing with the 1 stars. This review says, 1 star, not gay enough. This review says, "This was not a good read." And honestly, sometimes that's all you need on a website called Goodreads. Now we're getting into definitely my favorite read from last year, which is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, which is a retelling of David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. So I'm curious to see if any of these are gonna have anything to say. And this one has a much higher rating. All of the other ones that I've rated so far sit kind of in the 3.5 area. This one sits up at a 4.5. So I am not gonna screenshot this one because I don't wanna expose a reviewer. And I also, this is supposed to be a fun video, but there is something that I want to ask you guys about. I want to ask your guys' opinion. But this review essentially says, fascination, that's not the word this reviewer used, but the fascination of Appalachia and the unrelenting white savior complex of Barbara Kingsolver is exhausting. So, my question to you guys is, do we feel that books need to be written by the people who have lived those experiences? And what is the line that we feel that, because as far as I know, all of these, most of the main characters in the book, Demon specifically, as far as I know, he's white. So it's interesting to use the phrase white savior. But If an author devotes quite a bit of time to learning about the culture they're writing about, to getting using all sorts of resources and doing as much research as they're able to, are they allowed to write about that topic, or do we prefer it to remain within the voice of the people who live that experience? This review says, everyone who loves this book is a masochist. This is one of the saddest books I've ever read, not one single moment of happiness. I promise there are moments of happiness. If you're familiar at all with David Copperfield, the original book, that this is like, it's not a parody, but it's a retelling. If you're familiar at all with that book, you need to know that it's depressing. Quite a bit of that book is just things are not going well for David, and it's the same case with Demon in this book. Let's do Perks of Being a Wallflower, which I actually read for the first time recently. Okay, so let's do Perks. Perks of Being a Wallflower is also rated in the 4.2 area. This one, I'm not gonna read the whole review, but this one is by Emma. It says, I have always hated this book. Maybe it's because I hate being sad, and nothing on God's great green earth makes me sadder than lonely people. Even if the story I'm reading about is people no longer being lonely, that requires reading about them starting out that way, doesn't it? You know what, Emma? I really can't argue with you on that. The thing about a lot of these reviews is they do make points about the book. Now, they are most of the time based in personal opinion, but it is a book about being lonely, and it is a book about someone who becomes not lonely, but you do have to spend quite a bit of the book reading about how lonely he is. So Emma, yeah, you're right in a way, but I love that book. I think it's so good. I think it really details what it means to be a teenager and to live with depression and to see other friends grow older and move on to things like college and feeling like you're left behind. So, you know, I get it. Ooh, that's actually a really good review. This is probably the most overrated YA book of all time, right after the Twilight series. The thing is, it has just as much literary value. If I want to read a book about some kid growing up and writing bad poetry to his crushes, I can read my own diary, circle 7th grade. Some of these reviews are crazy, guys. I read for the first time The Color Purple by Alice Walker, which is a Pulitzer Prize winning book. It is not quite a classic, like I don't think it's old enough to be considered a classic yet, but I definitely think it's a modern classic. It sits on Goodreads at 4.2 stars also. So, I'm curious to see what everyone has to say about this. And I think a lot of these comments, I suspect a lot of these comments are gonna be like, why is this girl's life so hard? Like, you guys need to stop reading books. You guys need to stop reading sad books if you get upset when you're sad. This one's actually got a really interesting thing because a lot of these people who gave it 1 star are apologizing for giving it 1 star. Let me reiterate, you guys are allowed to not like things. You're allowed to read books and be like, this isn't really my jam. That is okay. This says, this book sucks. I did not like the main character, and in fact, I like Mr. the best. The first page was too visual. They should change the title to The Color Blue. Why? Who knows? I don't even know what to say about that review, honestly. What does that mean? Let's get into some more recent popular ones. One of the most influential books of my generation, which is The Hunger Games. So, let's look at these 1-star reviews. This review says, I am now stupider from reading this. Well, I had to huff and puff my way through this book. There is nothing admirable about any of the characters. The main character is a walking contradiction. The book starts out well enough, but by the end it's like a Mary Sue. Some of these commenters some of these reviewers I would really like to talk to about why they felt that way. Now that book was read in 2011. It was a while ago, so this person may or may not feel the same way that they have felt in the past. But I think a lot of the point of it is there's not a lot admirable about a lot of the characters. Now, nothing about any of them seems like a stretch, but Suzanne Collins really excels in writing very thorough characters. She gives them flaws, she does not have them shy away from the flaws. So that's something I really like about the book, personally. This review just says, ugh. Update, just ugh. It's interesting to me. Can anyone answer the question to me? Why people who DNF books rate the books? And if so, because I've seen two different kind of rating systems. A lot of people will only rate books 1 star if they couldn't even finish it, but a lot of people, and I'm one of these people, I don't rate books I never finished because I don't really want to spend the time and energy to do that. So I want to know if you guys are people who rate DNFs or if you don't, because several of these reviews on all of these books have just been like, oh, I got 25% of the way through it and DNF'd. 1 star, you know? So tell me more about that, because I'm actually really, really curious about it. One of my favorite books and movies, honestly, is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. He's one of my favorite authors. I just think he is wonderful, and I think he is very, very good at what he does. So, Coraline. I am curious about it. I think a lot of these reviews are just gonna be too scary. And honestly, it's a scary book for kids. I didn't read it as a kid, but I'm not sure I could have handled it if I did. Yep, the first review is creepy AF. One was, I liked the film more than the book. This review says, I really, really, really dislike this book, and if it were possible, I would give it 0 stars. I don't recommend this to anyone. It really has no meaning, and it's just freaky for the sake of being freaky. Humph. I was expecting better. Alright. It says, I adore the film. It's one of my favorite movies, but I don't know why I couldn't connect with the book. I am curious about that too, because the movie adds an additional character so that Coraline isn't just dialoguing to herself the entire movie. But other than that, I think it's a really faithful adaptation of the book. So I'm curious about that too. So this one, I'm curious to see what the reviews are going to say about it. Because this is Babel by R.F. Kuang, who I think is an insanely talented fantasy writer. And I think she's so smart, and everything, like every time I read something by her, I was like, oh no, this author might be too smart for me. I don't think I want to start using Goodreads. I do like how thorough a lot of the reviews are. If you are someone who is currently raising children, I think Goodreads is a really good resource for you to use to learn, like, hey, here's what goes on in the book, here's some topics that might not be appropriate for people. So if you are someone who is currently in the process of raising children, Goodreads is a great resource. So this was Babel. This was TikTok's latest dark academia darling. Oh, the disappointment. Don't always trust every review you see on the internet. And I'm talking to you as someone who reviews books on the internet. Don't trust every review. Like I said at the start of this video, some books might be some of my favorite books and they might not be for you, and vice versa. Also, TikTok is a repeat offender of like blowing up books that are not that great. So please be wary of what you're, like, if you take a recommendation from TikTok, it might be bad. Okay, this one says, all I'm gonna say is this, am I too dumb for this? In the kindest way, I loved this book, and I was thinking the same thing sometimes. There's a lot of analysis of language and colonialism, and a bunch of topics that are, you can tell R.F. Kuang did her research. She did a really great job understanding all the topics she was writing about. And yeah, there are definitely some moments where you have to be like, oh my gosh. There were several times in that book where I was like, this author is way smarter than I am. If you like smart writing, this is a book for you. If you like really like books where you can tell the author is very intelligent and you like fantasy, this one also has a really cool magic system, so I really recommend it for you. On, we got our final one, which I can see this going a lot of other different directions than the last several reviews I've read. This is Happy Place by Emily Henry. It's got a 4-star even on average on Goodreads. This review starts with, when I die, I want Emily Henry to lower me into my grave so she can let me down one last time. Help! Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. Okay, so 2 reviews. This one has spoilers. I'll put a time somewhere up on the screen where you can skip to. Miss Henry, can you explain how Shoddy is gonna pay those loans off? Yeah. This review says, no offense, but are you guys lying? Romance is not for everybody, and Emily Henry isn't necessarily an acquired taste because I like a lot of her books. Happy Place is personally one of my favorites. You can tell she's getting better and better at writing, like with her published works. In my opinion, I thought this one was miles ahead of the other Emily Henry books that I have read. But I also know it's not for everyone, and that's okay. This review says, not my happy place. Those are my books for you today. Like I said, they're not my all-time favorites. A lot of them are just books that I read for the first time this past year and really enjoyed. So yeah, if you guys have any thoughts about any of these books, please let me know down below in the comments section. Honestly, this was kind of a fun thing to do. Maybe I'll do it again. Maybe give me another year and maybe I'll do it on some books I read in the last year. Also in the comments, you should let me know if you are a regular book reviewer or if you just kind of star books and move on, because I am someone who just stars books and moves on, which is why I'm not on any of these websites. Also, do you guys recommend any of these websites? Do you recommend Goodreads? Or I know a lot of people like Storygraph because it's not associated with Amazon. Let me know down below. But yeah, so thanks for watching this video. Go out and get some sun, get some new freckles, get a tan, whatever your body does, go do that, because sunshine is really healthy for you. Go pet an animal that you know. Obviously, don't just pet strange animals. And go visit your local library. I will see you all later. Goodbye!